Welcome to Sisflix, the podcast where we won't judge you for talking through the movie. Sisflix are the movies you laugh at, yearn for, and overanalyze with your girls, significant others, and now us.
We are your hosts,
Paola
and Nadhya, two sisters and designers who discuss chick flicks we hate to love,
tropes we love to hate,
and all of the aesthetic choices in between. Join us as we break down our favorite movies together.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Happy March.
Happy March.
Happy Women's History Month.
Oh my God, that too. Happy March. Here we are in the land of longer days of sun exposure, slightly warmer temperatures, and slowly decreasing seasonal depression.
Hey. I saw some tulips starting to grow the other day.
Those tulips are going to be real mad when the frost hits again.
They made me so happy to see like the little green sprouts.
This is what we call Fool's Spring.
Fool's Spring, that's right.
Where we're having a week of like mild weather and everyone's like, oh my God, being alive isn't all that bad.
It's so beautiful.
And in a week, it's going to go back down to 25 degrees and we're all going to be like, no, I take it back. Being alive is the worst. It's simply terrible.
So it's just inspired by warm weather.
Yes.
Yeah. Got it.
You can literally tell how much more alive people are in the summer.
Oh, for sure.
People are like, this isn't all that bad. Capitalist hellscape. But in the winter, it's like capitalist fucking hellscape.
Well, that's nature's cycle.
The capitalist hellscape. It's the condition of man.
Us feeling dormant in the winter.
Yeah. Sometimes you just want really subdued, thoughtful, quiet, indoor media in the winter. You know what I mean?
Yes. Or like soul food media in the winter, right? Like a comfort movie, whatever that is for you. If it's like murder and fucking.
I love murder. It brings me so much comfort. This is my favorite.
What would you say was like your winter comfort?
Inside media?
Yeah.
You know what? I've been doing so much reading. Paola and I were just talking about this off mic, but I've been reading The Idea of You. We're getting ready, girls.
Ooh, let's go.
Let's all rub our hands together, roll up those sleeves, okay? Because the time is upon us. Prepare yourselves.
That's something to look forward to in the springtime.
Yeah, so been reading The Idea of You. I just finished On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and that book is very beautiful and incredibly painful to read.
Aww.
And just like really poetic and lovely. I know you've been watching a lot of iCarly with surprise appearance from Taylor Perez.
Oh my God. Yo, so my kids have been sick for like 3 weeks.
Your kids have been sick for like 6 months.
Oh my God. It's nonstop. It's been nonstop. This viral cold's been hanging out for so long that it eventually gave my kid an ear infection.
Damn.
He had a fever for like 4 days.
God
4 or 5
damn.
days. And we were home and he's watching iCarly. And apparently Taylor Perez makes a cameo.
Like a 10-second appearance.
You can't even call it a cameo. He was a baby child. For a total of 5 seconds, he walks in, gets hit by a ball, falls on the ground. That's his appearance. And so my kids watching this, I'm like, wait. What was that? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, who was that? That's supposed to be her date. I take the remote, I pause it, I rewind it, I pause it, I rewind it. I'm like, I think that's Taylor Perez. Who's that? I'm like, don't worry about it.
What a moment on iCarly.
I'm going to have to like go watch The Kissing Booth or something. Get my Taylor Perez fix.
Wait, help. If you guys want us to do The Kissing Booth, please
hell no.
Pay us $50. Just kidding. If you want us to do The Kissing Booth, send us a DM and say it really loud in our DM.
There's a donation link in our Spotify profile page. If you send us $50, we'll do The Kissing Booth. $50 is a lot of money. I'll do it for 10.
I'll do it for 50. No, I'm joking.
I'll do it for
I'll do it for one.
I'll do it for $10.
For a singular smooth George Washington. I'll do it for one. Is he the one on the $1 bill? I fucking
no.
hope so.
Matter of fact, you know what? We need an Anthony Hamilton.
A fiver?
Who's Anthony Hamilton?
We need an R&B singer, Anthony Hamilton.
Who is Anthony and why is he on my Hamilton? I don't know. Listen.
Jesus. Can someone pay us with a cameo from Anthony Hamilton, R&B singer, the man who is not on any currency? Please. Give us a call.
No, you want us to do it's got to be an Alexander Hamilton.
A smooth 5. So, all right, guys. Yep, you know how we do it. DM us if you want us to do the kissing booth. Send us $50. Paola, plug the link that's in the show notes. Anyway, moving on.
So we have the Oscars coming up.
What a segue. We sure do. The Oscars, they will be airing Sunday, March 10th from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern.
So in honor of the, I don't want to say in honor of the Oscars. Our movie pick of this week is actually an Oscar nominee. And so far, I think is the only, no. We've seen more movies that have been nominated.
I mean, we saw Barbie. Done.
Done. That was it. We saw Barbie and Past Lives. Yeah, I have a lot of catching up to do as far as Oscar movies goes because I haven't seen not 50% of the movies that have been nominated.
I haven't either.
But they're on the list to try to watch soon.
Samesies. But not all of them are.
Not a lot of romance movies make it to the Oscars.
I was gonna say not many Cisflix films of interest, but the main film of interest that is on all of these buzzy award season circuits and lists and all that shit is 2023's Past Lives, directed by Celine Song.
A gem.
A rare jewel, if Queen Charlotte will allow me the privilege.
So this movie we watched during our Cisflix holiday extravaganza.
Jesus.
Cisflix movie watching holiday extravaganza.
Correct.
And I loved this movie so much.
Same.
However, if you ask our husbands,
they will tell you nothing happened.
If you ask me,
everything happened.
Everything happened. I found so much depth and symbolism and beauty and emotion in this movie. Every time I rewatch it, I'm moved to tears.
This movie is so understated and subtle and restrained. I mean, I don't want to overuse that word, but like it's so stunning and controlled, and that relates both to like what is said, how it's shown, and how the characters behave. There's this is not a real genre, I'm making this up, but there's this genre, this like feeling of these quiet movies that creep up on you. Movies that don't need to make a lot of noise or huge attention grabbing gestures to like hook you into the story. Past Lives is such a perfect example of like a quiet movie that is like saturated in feeling.
For me, it's almost meditative. The music is part of that. Mm-hmm. And also the cinematography. It's shot in a way that wants you to reflect. There's this intimacy in the way it's shot, and at the same time, it wants you to look at that in terms of the big picture.
In the same vein, I think the way that it's shot with some of those wide shots where you almost lose where your characters are because the shot is so far away from them, like there's this sense of the importance of context.
Yes.
How you contextualize relationships in your life, where they land literally based on context. Where are you? What does this person mean to you now? What did they mean to you then?
It wants to create an intimacy between you, the viewer, and the environment. But then at the same time, then there's these shots where you're saying you kind of lose the subject and you're meant to like take in everything else around you. And that's exactly it. See this moment, see this relationship, but look at the big picture around it and the things that are affecting it. It's beautifully done. It's mind-blowing to me that this is her directorial debut because so much is communicated by the shots and the things presented on screen. There's so much symbolism through this movie. Guys, you are going to be tired of me by the end of this episode. because everything is symbolizing or pointing at something. And this movie doesn't have as much dialogue as you would expect from a character-driven plot. When we were going into doing this movie and I'm sitting to take down my notes, in my mind, I'm like, oh, there's not a lot of dialogue here. Like, these notes are going to be a breeze. Girl, I've taken more notes with this movie than I have with any other movie. You watch it the first time and you enjoy it for what it is, and it invokes emotion and it's telling a beautiful story, but it's on the rewatch for me. After you know how everything turns out and then you can rewatch it with all of that in mind, you can see the deeper symbolism. And that pretty much is how I consume movies that I really enjoy. I watch it one time and I get one message. I watch it another time. I get something else. Each time I watch it, I get something different from the things we consume, which is why it has led us to create this podcast so we can talk about it endlessly.
I'm so sorry, y'all. But at this point, it's been enough episodes where you all know what the fuck is going on. All right, you know the drill. We're going to give you a little information about the background of this movie, who made it, who's in it, followed by a back of the book summary, followed by a not summary where we discuss the entire movie very, very much in depth over and over. Past lives released in 2023, written and directed by Celine Song in her directorial debut, starring Greta Lee as Nora. Greta Lee has been in a million different things, most of which I haven't seen. What I have seen her in is New Girl, where she plays like Nick's girlfriend for a few episodes, and she's absolute trash, and I love her. She's
oh my god,
so fucking funny.
She's got like a deadpan humor in real life.
She has the perfect face for deadpan humor.
She truly does. Like, she knows how to make like an inexpressive expression.
Yeah. Oh my god, she's fucking great. Teo Yu as Haesung and John Magaro as Arthur, Nora's husband. All right, so costume designer is Katina Denabasis, who worked on Lady Bird, a movie I fucking love that I'm eventually going to force Paola to do with me, and
for sure
on Euphoria as an assistant costume designer, which is so exciting because if there's anything good about Euphoria, it's the vibes, and the costumes are part of that. Production designer Grace Yun, who also did the Netflix miniseries Beef, which has won a ton of awards and lots of accolades for the star Ali Wong and everyone else on that show. It was huge. The score was done by Christopher Bear and Daniel Rawson, who are part of the band Grizzly Bear, which is so fucking cool.
I never heard of them.
They have a few songs I used to listen to like a few years ago. Them being from the band Grizzly Bear is really cool. I always think it's really, really sick when musicians do film scores or participate in something that's more like cinematic than their usual music. Like Grizzly Bear have also worked on Blue Valentine and the Twilight Saga New Moon, to name a few. So that's really interesting and really cool. As you know, as we've mentioned, Past Lives has been nominated for pretty much everything, and the list is long, and I'm not going to name them all.
Yeah, they just won Best Feature and Best Director in the Independent Spirit Awards.
Hell yeah.
So kudos to them. They're nominated for, let me see what Oscars they're nominated for.
They're nominated for Picture of the Year and Best Original Screenplay.
I mean, we were bummed not to see Greta Gerwig not nominated for Best Director, and also Celine Song. I mean, there's one female director in the list of nominees, and that was for Anatomy of a Fall, which is another one that's about to take
all the awards.
Yeah. But yeah, I really love this movie and how it communicates with the viewer.
It's
Celine
so
Song did her thing.
Subdued. You just feel it. Like you feel it. It's tangible to you.
For people who enjoy visual art, it's a delight to watch.
It's a feast for the eyes.
It really is. Those of us who have artsy brains, wired for composition and color and things like that, this is definitely a treat.
Sister, hit us with a scorecard.
The scorecard. Is this a straight or queer love story? This is a straight love story.
Again, boo. Just kidding. Just kidding because this is based on her life, but boo.
This is actually slightly autobiographical, which is very interesting. Does this have source material? No, this is an original screenplay written by Celine Song herself. So she wrote this script and wrote it based on events that happened in her life and also directed the film. So I think that's why it resonates so much as a viewer as well, because you're seeing her storytelling. She's the one bringing it to life and delivering it how she saw it in her mind as an artist. And I think that shows through for sure. So like we mentioned, this movie is written and directed by Celine Song, a woman of Korean descent. What's the trope? Childhood sweethearts, long distance relationship, a little bit of unrequited love, a love triangle, and a friends to almost lovers, guys.
The most painful kind.
If friends to lovers doesn't give you enough yearn, try a friends to almost lovers. This is a yearn fest here, my guy.
We out here yearning. We out here burning.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I mean, think about it. We just did one day. This is another relationship that spans 2 decades.
Sister, I'm going to ask you.
Yes.
Can you hit me with that fucking back of the book summary?
Back of the book.
Back of the book.
We have Nora and Hae-sung, 2 deeply connected childhood friends, are torn apart after Nora's family immigrates from South Korea. Decades later, they are reunited for one fateful week as they confront destiny, love, and the choices that make a life.
Let's go. So, the movie opens, black screen, but an ambiance and low soundtrack of restaurant noise. We have clinking glasses, murmur of conversation that you can't quite make out, and you hear a disembodied female voice ask a disembodied male voice, who do you think they are to each other? And then we get the reveal. Black screen is lifted. We are looking at 3 people centered on the screen, incredibly warm, orange, yellow, this glowing bar interior that feels dusty, quintessentially New York, soft like velvet. It almost has like a texture when you're looking at it. And we see from left to right, very handsome Asian man, very beautiful Asian woman, and a handsome American man. And they're all kind of like suspended in this awkward interaction where it seems like the Asian man and Asian woman are kind of engrossed with each other, and the American man is like a little bit off to the side. We hear these spectators say to each other, I think the Asian man and Asian woman are together, and the American guy's just their friend. Oh, well, I think the American guy and the Asian woman are together, and they're playing tour guide for the Asian guy. They're kind of never quite landing on what the actual relationships between them are. As they're having this talk, camera moves in. We get closer to the 3 people. The woman in the middle, who we come to learn is Nora, turns her head slightly, makes eye contact with the viewer, breaks the 4th wall.
And they're pretty much saying out loud what you as a viewer will be asking yourself for the rest of the movie as these relationships are presented to you and you kind of see them unwind in time. You're kind of always asking yourself like, okay, who are they to each other right now?
The onlookers mention, as they're trying to dissect this trio, what are they doing in a bar at 4 a.m.? As the viewer, I'm like, girl, 4 a.m.
You're
Hi.
Maybe they went out that night and then they stopped for an extra drink.
Went out in my fucking dreams. Put me to bed if it's 4 a.m. and I'm out at a bar. My God.
It's so striking when the female character breaks that 4th wall.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of looks straight at you while you're trying to decipher these relationships. Almost like letting you know, like, oh, this is more than you think.
It's almost like a knowing look on her face. We get a flashback, not quite flashback, to 24 years earlier. We are in Korea and we have a city view, and it is like temperate, sunny, dusty. These like pale blues and pale stone colors are all mixing together to create a very like warm feeling tropical city. And 2 kids are walking up a lane, girl and a boy. They're probably preteens. They're like 12 maybe. The little girl is crying and upset with the boy because she got second place to him in school. And he says, you know, I'm always second place to you, but I don't cry. Like, how do you think it makes me feel when you're second place to me and you start crying? Like, I don't want to make you upset. She doesn't say anything. And he's kind of like, all right, crazy, and walks away. You can tell that they know each other. They have some type of relationship. He's mindful of her feelings, even at the tender age of 12, when boys are historically shitty. So he definitely doesn't want to upset her, just wants to make her happy. This is also something that I just want to say early on. This movie is quiet, but it is not slow paced. I think we often confuse quietness for slowness, especially in visual media, and that's not true. I would say that the plot of this movie moves rather quickly. They're jumping from place to place and time to time.
Things
quickly.
are constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the boy and the girl diverge. We cut to a shot of a stereo system with like a huge collection of music and an older Korean man. Because Paola has an eagle eye and she's nuts. The song that is playing on this stereo system is Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye by the legendary Leonard Cohen.
I mean, if you're giving me a shot when we're looking at the music source and you stay there for a little bit, you're telling me I need to pay attention to what's playing.
You're telling me it's meaningful.
And just by the title of the song, Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye, it's foreshadowing. And also, as the viewer, when I'm seeing these two kids interacting, and he is very sweet with her, but when they part, they barely say anything. She's like upset because of her grade, and he's like trying to comfort her. And then they don't even really say bye. They just go their separate ways. And you don't know if it's maybe a cultural thing, this is just their personality, or it's just that they had a bad day. And then you switch to a song that's, Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye. And then you also realize the people in this room are packing their stuff.
So I very, very, very briefly just want to call out a handful of the lyrics from this song. Because again, as Paola said, if you're going to linger on the song or on what you're putting on in a moment of a movie, we're going to assume that it's meaningful. We're going to tie it back to the plot. And one thing I will say about this movie is that the details are so thought out and so purposeful. Literally, how could all these details fit inside someone's brain as they're making this? I don't know. Here are some of the lyrics from this song. Yes, many loved before us. I know that we are not new. In city and in forest, they smiled like me and you. But let's not talk of love or chains and things we can't untie. Your eyes are soft with sorrow. Hey, that's no way to say goodbye.
So sweet. And when you think about those lyrics, they fit so well.
Leonard Cohen, man, what a fucking songwriter. Like a goddamn legend of a songwriter. Truly, like, you'll find that some of the best songs will be covers of fucking Leonard Cohen songs. And you're just like, what? How did we miss this? So as the camera moves away from the stereo system, there are packing boxes and things everywhere. So you're seeing like someone going through the process of packing up their home. And you can assume that these are people who are involved in the arts, right? They're in film, they're in music, they're in performing arts. There are cameras, tapes, reels all over the place scattered. Two little girls come to the door, one of whom is the one we just saw walking home with the boy. The other is a younger girl. We can assume that they're sisters. The mom, older woman in the scene, asks, what did you decide? Because what we learn is that the girls are choosing English names. You can assume that they're choosing English names because they're moving somewhere English speaking, somewhere outside of Korea.
Na-young, which is the oldest sister, the little girl we met, doesn't like any of the English names. She seems almost reluctant to pick an English name. You can assume that at this age, she probably doesn't want to move away from home, or it's a hard change, right? Because this doesn't only involve moving. Think about what it means to change a name. It's almost like changing an identity. And that might not affect the little sister so much. But when you're 12 years old and you're figuring out your identity and now you have to kind of change it again as you're learning who you are, you can see that reluctance and confusion in Na-young at this age. So she's struggling to pick her English name. The dad from across the room suggests Lenore, and it can be Nora for short. And she tries that on her tongue. She says Nora Moon. That's her last name. And that sounds so beautiful.
That's a gorgeous last name.
And just as satisfied as you feel when you hear her say Nora Moon, she shows that same satisfaction in her face. And also, I didn't realize that Koreans roll their R's because they say Nora Moon. Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. Later that day, they're at the table and mom is getting all the passports in order and asks Na-young, who do you like at school nowadays? You get the impression that they're planning this move and the mom wants to maybe make the best of the last couple of days. So Na-young thinks about this and she answers with Haesung, as she pictures him in her mind. This is the little boy that she was walking home with. The mom asks her why. She answers with, he's manly. And you're like, hey, little 12-year-old girl, get out of here. But also this comes back later. This comment manly of how manly Hae Song is. He's manly and I'll probably marry him. The mom's like, does he want to marry you? And she's like, well, he likes me and he'll do whatever I tell him. It's like, okay, girl, that's the energy. Got it.
You tell him, yes.
You tell him.
That's the power dynamic we like.
Well, mom offers to take them on a date and contacts Hae Song's mom, and they meet at the park. While they're at the park, Hae Song's mom asks Na-young's mom, why would you leave everything that you have here to immigrate? Na-young's dad is a filmmaker. Her mom is an artist. Like, these are careers that they're probably going to either have to leave or put on hold during this transition. To which Na-young's mom answers, if you leave something behind, you gain something too. This isn't about the comfort we have now in our lives. This is about forward movement for my family in general. So the kids are playing around in this park, and this is a sculpture park in South Korea called the MMCA Outdoor Sculpture Park. They're moving around these iconic sculptures called A New Gaze on the Being. This is something you can visit. And the sculptures are of two faces facing each other, a man's face and a woman's face. Almost like, is it a gaze? Is it a reflection of each other? Is it portraying love? Is it portraying friendship? And they linger on this sculpture. You're supposed to take this sculpture in. On the ride back home in the car, Hae Song and Na-young are holding hands, and she's falling asleep on his shoulder. Hae Song takes a moment, looks at their hands laced together, and then looks outside of the window in contemplation. He knows that she's leaving. On the rewatch, I noticed you get this identical shot later on in the movie.
So the next day at school, everyone in her class is asking her why she's leaving. She says she wants to leave because Koreans don't win the Nobel Prize for Literature. Duh, everyone knows that. Just kidding. And Hae Song is keeping himself separate from the group, but he's eavesdropping a little bit. At the end of that day, they walk home together in silence. It's very hilly wherever they're walking as well.
This is San Fran levels of hills where they live in South Korea. It really is.
They reach this point where they would normally break off and walk to their respective homes.
Well, they don't talk on their whole walk home. I think Hae Song looks almost offended by her comment that she made in the classroom. Mm-hmm. I want to leave Korea because I can't win Nobel Prizes here. Mm-hmm. And I think that he almost takes offense to that.
And to be honest, that sounds like the kind of thing that like your parent says to you to placate you when you're moving around, when something is upsetting you. They're like, listen, when we move there, you'll win the Nobel Prize for Literature. And then you're like, okay.
Right, we got to do this. Right. So you get the impression that maybe this is something she's overheard her parents either say, or it's something they say to her to comfort her about the move.
Right. So after this long, silent walk, they come to a fork in the road that is positioned like perfectly on screen. The camera is positioned behind them. This split at this like forked road is dead center. It's just two walking paths between different buildings. Nora's positioned on or Na-young rather, is positioned on the right, heading up a colorful set of stairs. And Hae Song is positioned on the left, going on a path that looks very similar in continuity to the path that they have been on. It looks like a split screen, but it's just organically well framed. They split off. They're still not saying anything. Na-young is ascending the stairs and Hae Song stops her. Hey, they look at each other for like a silent moment and they each say bye in the kid way.
Very unceremonious.
Very much.
Just bye.
He walks off dejected. She just keeps ascending the stairs. You got to keep on trucking. Yeah, it's like this beautiful, gorgeous, like colorful set of like painted stairs. It feels, again, it's like there's so many details in this movie that just feels so intentional. It just feels really symbolic that she's going up this specific stairwell and the way that it's painted.
And he's taking a more moderate path, still inclined, still heading up. Whereas her path, yes, it's colorful and it's interesting, but it's also a climb. And I think it represents her journey you see her take throughout the movie, right? Where she moves from place to place, always moving, but always to advance. And he kind of hangs around his hometown. So this shot right here is telling you their story.
They're dressed differently too, right? So the few minutes that we've spent with Haesung and Nayoung, he's worn shades of blue and she has worn red. She has a red hoodie. She has like a t-shirt with a red pattern on it. The difference between what they're wearing is so stark. She's in red, he's in blue. They're diverging. They're going opposite ways.
Yeah, and I think that blue being a subtle color and red being a fiery color, a color that can symbolize passion, following your passions, or an artistic path as well, whereas his is more subdued and more conventional.
Mm-hmm. After this goodbye, we cut to the next scene. Nayoung's family is now on a plane. She is sitting with her sister and her mom. Their dad is kind of across the aisle in a different seat. She and her sister, her much younger sister, are practicing English and their new English names.
Their interaction is so cute.
It is.
It's like, hi, I'm Nora. And you? I'm fine. And you?
I'm fine.
And you?
It's very silly. You also get the sense that like they're not brokenhearted about making this move. It might be very scary, but there's a level of excitement there, even if it's like subtle excitement. They arrive at Toronto Pearson International Airport. They go through customs. Nora's sister falls asleep in her lap as they wait. Cut away from customs, and we see Nayoung, now Nora, at her new school. Very similar energy to her old school. Like the kids are the same age. They're all kind of behaving in the same fashion, the way preteens do. But she's out of place now.
Even how you say that, Nayoung, now Nora. There's a shift. There's a distinct line in the identities you have to cross to start this new life, going from South Korea to Toronto, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel for her. I feel for her in this scene.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you moved at a very similar age. You didn't move countries, but you moved towns and schools and cultures.
There was definitely a cultural shift for me, for sure, especially coming out of Washington Heights, where you're literally in Little Dominican Republic, to like New Jersey suburbs. There was a cultural shift, but not languages.
Yeah.
Cultural in like identity, not in customs.
I can't imagine.
No, I wouldn't even be able to compare.
Yeah.
You can compare it to the shift of our family members who moved from the Dominican Republic to the United States at a young age.
Yeah.
That's a change in customs and language and all of that.
Yeah. It's kind of like any shift in your life at that age hits you hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Title card.
12 years pass.
We see that Haesung is in the military. We're back in Korea, back in that kind of hazy, tropical feeling visual. Mm-hmm. Haesung is like marching in line with like a large group of other soldiers of a similar age. It seems like they're just doing training, like some type of training exercise or patrol exercise. We cut from them marching to them all splayed out in like a field, taking some kind of meal break. You can pinpoint that Haesung is just lost in his thoughts, not dedicating as much of his energy to eating as his companions. We switch back to Nora, who is now adult Greta Lee. She's in the back of a cab. It seems like she's on like the Long Island Expressway driving back into the city.
She probably landed at LaGuardia.
Yes, exactly. She has this air of like contentment on her face, honestly. Like she's just sitting in the back of this cab. She's got this beautiful sun-dappled glow. And we cut to the next scene where we see her taking part in some type of writing or literature class. I think they're giving her a critique in this class. So anybody who's gone to like any type of art school, you're going to do peer critiques from like fucking day one. It's so familiar to me in like my school experience to sit in a classroom and just have your peers take apart or praise your work depending on how you did for that assignment. You know, she's silent. She's accepting what her peers are saying. And we hear one of her classmates say the phrase that sticks with him from her work is, quote, the long journey of rotting, unquote. A woman chimes in and says, quote, I like how you use the long pauses, unquote. It feels very meta because you're feeling like it's very salient to this movie.
It is. It is. I caught this in the last rewatch. When I tell you, like, I stopped, I'm like, wait, what did he say? And I rewound it. And I'm like, oh, I think they're talking to her. And I think they're talking about maybe this story that's already written down. That's what it felt like.
We cut to the next scene. Nora is back in some type of dorm room. It feels very much like some type of economy or efficiency graduate student dorm for those of us who lived at college. And she's sitting at her desk wearing a t-shirt that says Niagara Falls on it and talking to her mom on the phone.
From the Canada side.
And talking to her mom on the phone.
Niagara Falls in the New York side.
Yeah, by accident.
We went there on purpose. We ended up in Canada by accident.
Yeah, if you guys want to know that story, send us $50. So
you're just send us money.
Just send us some money if you want to hear this. We'll tell you. It's not a secret, but just send us some money. So she's on the phone with her mom, and they're just having like a chit chat about some of her old classmates from Korea. Right. And she's simultaneously looking them up online as she and her mom are talking about them, which is something fucking all of us have done. OK, especially
it's a cute interaction. It's like you get that her and her mom continue like a cool mom daughter relationship.
Yes. Yeah. Those of us who are old enough to have lived through the peak of Facebook, you absolutely fucking did this. So pretty much this entire movie has happened in Korean so far. And Nora continues to speak to her mom in Korean and asks, does she remember the name of that boy that I had this huge crush on? Like, what's his name? Between the two of them, they conjure up his name from the mist of their memories. And she looks him up on Facebook, finds him, realizes that he had posted on her dad's Facebook page asking for her information because he had been looking for her on social media and could not find her. She's like, holy shit. Okay, mom, like, I have to call you back. I need to gather my courage to message this man. She sends him a message quick. Like, I saw that you posted on my dad's, business Facebook page. Like, were you looking for me? I know that we already mentioned her like Niagara Falls t-shirt, but I do want to bring up her styling a little bit. So I think this movie doesn't focus on what the characters are wearing because it's not meant to. It kind of keeps their wardrobes deliberately ambiguous. Even though this is very much at a point in time, their wardrobes aren't trendy enough to call back to like a specific year. As we were discussing one day, like there are outfits that will differentiate a mid-90s from an early 90s look, and they're not really doing that much differentiating with their outfits from 2010s to 2022. It's more about how the characters feel and how the characters look, less about the actual specific wardrobe.
Right.
Nora's hairstyle, for example, as a child, she wore 2 pigtails parted down the middle with little rubber bands on them. As an adult, where she's in her early 20s as a grad student, she's got the middle part with a very blunt, severely cut bob that reaches her chin.
Which looks fantastic on her.
Her bone structure, her kill me. She looks amazing.
This woman never has to do her hair, by the way. Her hair is just flawlessly straight at all times.
Stop it. That'll make me so angry to think about. So literally, Paola and I were talking about how I blew my hair out and 3 drops of water fell on it, and now I have to blow it out again. Anyway, so I guess the reason that I wanted to call attention to that is because it's like a leveling up from her childhood hairstyle. Still got the middle part, but it's just done differently. Her hair's shorter. She's looking older now. And there's very subtle differences between her look as a westernized person and someone's look as a purely Korean person. And those differences become more stark a little bit later on in the movie. But at this point, it's kind of like her wardrobe is casual. Her wardrobe is like pretty American, pretty Canadian, right? Like interchangeable North Americanness of it. This like Niagara Falls t-shirt, and she has a tattoo inside one of her arms. And like, I'm not 100% familiar with like different nuances of like Korean culture, but I know for a fact, Dominican Republic, none of my cousins have tattoos.
And I'll say this, I have very little immigrant friends who were comfortable with even talking about tattoos until like a certain age. I mean, and also that depends on where you come from.
For sure.
But there's always this element of immigrant parents are always a lot stricter and a lot more traditional than American culture is.
Yes. I'm the first and only person in my nuclear family to have a tattoo, and I thought my mom was going to have a full heart attack when she saw it for the first time.
Like once you do take the step to get a tattoo, get a specific kind of haircut, get the piercing, you very rarely see a child of immigrants with these things as a teenager. Very rarely. But again, I don't know.
Right. I was going to say I'm not terribly familiar with Korean culture. Like, I think there are many parts of Korean culture that are not super conservative and some parts that are, just like anywhere in the world. But just from our lived experience as the children of immigrants in this country, from like a mediumly conservative place, you feel comfortable making these statements about yourself when you grow up in the West, for example. If we had grown up in Dominican Republic, you know, like even the way we dress would be different. Like we would be styled fully differently, our hair styled fully differently. Like I think the subtlety of those differences in this movie, almost without you even knowing, subconsciously you're aware that her attitude and manner is very, very different than it would have been had she fully grown up in Korea. So we cut where? Korea, baby. We cut to where Haesung is at a bar with his friends. He is rocking a Bieber cut. So that's how you know it's 2012.
Also, they take these actors and they span them through 2 decades of their life. And they do a really good job of aging them just using hair and makeup tactics.
Because, again, he's rocking a little Biebs. So it's making him look younger. It's making him look more baby-faced. That, like, hairstyle is, again, of such a time. Like the late aughts, early 2010s. He is with his group of friends. One of his friends is super duper sad over a breakup. They're all drinking. His friend starts to like drunkenly cry. The other friends jump in to comfort him. It's gonna be okay, dude. Like you're gonna pull through this.
Let me just say, watching this from an American perspective took me so off guard, like seeing this group of men like comforting one of their peers crying. And you see this throughout the movie because they're a great friend group.
We meet this friend group maybe 2 times, but they leave such an impact.
They do, and I think they're adorable.
Haesung, at one point while they're out, gets a message notification on his phone, which he opens up and has like a shocked face. Like he's like, what? Like he like seems really surprised and caught off guard. We cut to Haesung waking up hungover AF the next day at his home. It's like cracking one eye open because you don't want to let in too much light type of hungover. Grabs his phone to check the time and realizes that the last thing he had his phone open to was that message from Nora on Facebook. He's like, holy shit, it's real, right? Like this message from her is real. As we kind of see him waking up, you see that there's like a glass of water left on the nightstand with what you can assume is like the equivalent of like Advil or like a pain medication. And we kind of hear from outside his door, who you assume to be his mother, call like, you know, it's time to wake up. As he comes out of his room, goes into the kitchen, his mom is serving up some food. There's a full fucking spread on this table. It looks amazing, okay? And the dad is already sitting at the table, opening a newspaper, eating. Haesung sits down with them. It feels like a very everyday interaction, except for like his energy, because you can tell that he has tension in him now that he's received this message from Nora. Paola, you made a really good point here in the notes, which is like he lives with his parents, and that's like so common, not in the West.
Yeah, because even when you see the water and pills on the bedside, at my age, if I go out drinking, before I go to bed, there's water and pills on my bedside because I know I'm going to need those when I wake up. I don't know that you're thinking about that when you're 24.
No.
So mom put them there. Not only does he live with his parents, he's taken care of by his parents. And I'm saying this in relation to our background. In our immigrant family, this is something very common where you live in your home until you're married. Moving out when you're 18 is a very Western thing to do. And by Western, I mean like
American.
White European.
Yeah, American, white European, Canadian, the Caucasian West. Again, not a value statement, not a judgment on people who do that differently, of course. Just an observation that we have as people from an immigrant background. So, you know, as we mentioned, like Haesung has this like tension in him after receiving this message from Nora. He sits down to have breakfast with his parents and hasn't said much of anything, but his mom is like, why are you in such a good mood?
We assume sarcastically. We can't, as non-Korean speakers, we're going by subtitles.
Yeah.
This is another thing this movie does. If you're not Korean or don't speak Korean, it makes you sit down and pay attention to this story because you're reading through their dialogue.
There's no phone scrolling.
No, you can't be distracted while you're watching because you have to take them in. You have to read what they're saying. But also, if you're not a speaker of the language, you're going to miss sarcasm in how they're inflecting their words. So you have to use more of the visual cues. And I think Celine Song knows that, which is why she uses visual storytelling so well. If you're a watcher who knows the language, you're probably able to enjoy it more casually because you're able to hear the storytelling in their communication.
So we cut back to Nora receiving a message at her school library. And from the context clues of this movie, from her reaction where she like smiles immediately upon opening this message, you assume that it's Haesung answering her. She rushes home. We get this amazing overhead shot of Nora like power walking, followed by breaking into a full-on run.
She like skips and then power walks again, skips, and then just goes, fuck it, and starts running.
It's very cute. Like, to have that level of excitement about anything, I'm dead inside. So she gets home, pops open Skype, 2012 baby, and calls Haesung. And they see each other for the first time in 12 years.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if I could have a 5-minute conversation with someone I haven't seen in 12 years. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know. 12 years? Oh my God, I was 18. Oh my God. Anyway, I don't want to think about it. So...
And he says that he's been looking for her. He hasn't been able to find her because he didn't know that she changed her name
to Nora from Nayoung. You know, he asks like, well, can I keep calling you Nayoung? Because calling you Nora would be weird. And she's like, yeah, of course. They catch up and he pokes fun at her for that time that she cried in school because he like got a better grade than her, which is the scene that we basically open up on with them as kids. You used to cry a lot back in those days. She kind of thinks about it for a second and reminisces on like, you know, you would always stay with me when I cried. I don't really cry anymore. And he's like, why not? You can't cry in New York? And she's like, you know, when I got to Canada, right? Like to the West, to my new home, I would cry every day. But then I realized like no one cares. But when I used to cry back home, you used to care. You saw me when I was crying. Then no one was there to see me anymore. So we get kind of like...
As they're talking.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you hear them in voiceover?
You do. So after this initial Skype conversation, we get kind of like an almost continuous voiceover piecing together different conversations that they're having over quick cuts between different scenes. So we get a wide shot of like urban Korea in the morning. The sun is low. And then we get a similar wide shot of the New York City skyline where it's nighttime. And they've been on Skype for hours. And, you know, have to go. She's got to go to bed. He's probably got like stuff to do.
He's got to go to class. It's late evening in New York. It's almost midnight.
Yeah.
By the time they're hanging up the phone. I love how they show this. How they show his cityscape early morning, right? Because you see that the sun's low. And then they switch to New York City's skyline. And... it's nighttime to present to you two things. One, hours have passed. And two, just the difference in their environments at the same time while they're having this conversation. They're reminding you are on two opposite sides of the world.
So Haesung, you know, kind of shyly. And I also think like, this is going to sound silly, but I think his hairstyle also like helps perpetuate this like shyness that he has with Nora. Because he kind of hides a little bit, like behind his hair.
Yes,
and
true.
He says to her, like, you know, it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not even sure I can say something like this. And she's like, it's okay. Like, go on. And he's like, I missed you. And Nora just says, me too. And it doesn't make any sense. They sit with that for a second. And then he has to go. They end the call. And she's like giddy. Clearly, whatever crush information was there for her brain when she was 12 remains at 24.
It's so cute.
Now is when we really get into like a voiceover montage where they're continuing like a daily correspondence. We see Nora kind of handwriting some characters on paper and then typing them out.
Because as she's typing, she needs to know where the Korean letters are.
Yes, that makes sense.
She draws out the Korean keyboard so that she can get used to writing emails to Haesung in Korean.
And we see them Skyping again in this montage over time. They get more comfortable. They start making fun of each other. They discuss their future plans, their career goals. We see them make an effort to talk in spite of their time difference, right? So like late nights, early mornings, in between class, on the bus, like that type of thing.
There's a part where Haesung recalls something that Nora said on that last day of school where she says, I want to move so I can win a Nobel Prize. And he asks her, is that still what you want? And Nora answers with, nowadays, I'm more interested in the Pulitzer. Her goals are changing as her path changes. And he tells her, you're still the same 12-year-old girl I remember. You want to do everything and have everything. And I think that is so indicative of the path that we see them take from early on.
Even though Nora's goals have changed, she remains just as ambitious as she was when she was 12 years old. Nora mentions that she was accepted into a month-long artist residency in Montauk, which is really, really far out on like the edge of Long Island. Haesung is super proud of her, which is like very sweet. She mentions to him kind of offhandedly, oh, hey, have you seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? And then the immediate next cut is Haesung watching it on his laptop, which yeah. I love. I love when people, I have like 3 songs that Ryan has sent me that I have to listen to, but I love when people like send each other things and like pay attention.
Or you should see this movie. This made me think about you. That's my love language.
Same. And the lines that appear on the screen, because he's watching it with subtitles, are, I love you so much. I just want to make you happy. Tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it.
That reflects on what Nora says earlier in the movie where she's like, he likes me. He'll do what I want. I'm going to call this Nora energy for the right, because we see this energy come up a couple of times in this movie. I'm calling it Nora energy.
No, so we cut to Nora from that scene, cut to her in a writing class, writing an email to Haesung on her laptop rather than paying attention to whatever the writing assignment is. And then we cut to a Skype between her and Haesung where he tells her he's moving to China on like a language exchange program to learn Mandarin. And she kind of offhandedly is like, well, you should move to New York. And he's like, why would I go to New York? Girl,
ooh,
if you don't shut the fuck up.
Why would I go to New York?
Bitch, because the sun is there. My son, it's Nora.
Hello, exactly.
He says, well, I've always wanted to learn Mandarin and I'm not going to move to New York to learn English. And it really is this moment where she's kind of exposing like a slice of vulnerability, because it's not that Nora is a hard shell person. I think it's just that her vulnerability is buried deep inside, like it is for all of us. Even her playfully being like, you should come to New York, is pretty much like shouting, I want you to come be with me in New York. And him being like, no, I have other plans, is kind of like the rejection.
Exactly. Like, and it's not even so much her shouting, even just, I think it was just a nudge.
Yeah.
It was literally almost shot down in a way like, well, why would I do that? And you as the viewer are like, motherfucker, because Nora's there. What do you mean? Why would you do that? And she's not asking him to move his life. Come to New York, visit.
I mean, she could also be asking him to move his life. And that's how I think he interprets it.
He's not moving to China. He's just going for a temporary time.
It's also this rare moment where Haesung is openly and deliberately choosing his path in spite of what Nora is doing, or in spite of what she asks of him, right? So same moment at the beginning of the movie where she's like, oh, well, he likes me. He'll do whatever I want. And it's like, no, not necessarily, because he's like a person with independence and agency. And you are 2 people that haven't been in the same 3-dimensional space in over a decade. So like, yeah, he's going to maintain his plans and I'm not going to like begrudge him that. We cut to Nora in a library trying to Skype with Haesung, but the internet connection sucks. They aren't able to reach each other. We see this happen several more times over the ensuing cuts. She falls asleep, so she misses a call from him. They're trying to Skype, but their phones disconnect. He's trying to Skype her from like the bus and his phone disconnects, or the train. And it's this lack of connection, both literally and metaphorically.
Ever since that conversation where she casually throws out there, oh, you should visit New York. And he says, why would I do that? They're no longer on the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm. After these several cuts of like poor connection, we cut to Haesung in a tram overlooking Seoul and Skyping Nora from his phone so that she can see the view, which is like aggressively precious. That's so fucking cute.
But then he says, I wish you were here.
He says she should come back to Korea so that they can do this together. He can show her around the city. They can ride the tram. She doesn't really directly respond to that. She just kind of quietly says, like, I miss you. And the call drops. Then in voiceover, again, we're getting the sense of like, we're getting a voiceover of like different snippets of Skype calls over this like changing montage where the mood is like a mood of disconnection, a mood of dissatisfaction. He says like, would you ever come to Seoul? this place where you're from. Because to a certain extent, he almost feels like, well, Korea makes sense. This is where you're from. I don't have any connection to New York. I'm not from there. I've never been there. But you left Korea. You know this place. You should be comfortable here. You should like it here. That's never explicitly said. That's just kind of a vibe I get whenever he brings up, like, would you ever come to Seoul? And she's like, why would I go to Seoul?
She answers him in the same way he answered her.
And then we see him outside of school with a couple friends. He seems to get an alert on his phone, walks off. Cut to Nora Skyping Haesung from her room, and just from her face and her posture, like, you can tell that she's really tense. It seems like she kind of messaged him suddenly and was like, we need to talk. The most dreaded 4 words in the English language. As they're on this Skype, he's also really nervous because he's like, this seems serious. She asks when he would be able to visit her in New York, which is...
Second chance, Haesung.
And he goes, no time soon. Not for a year and a half because of my language exchange program.
In China.
Yes. And she's upset. Again, something that I think Greta Lee, as an actress, does so well in this movie is, like, there are so many subtleties in her performance, and her performance is so layered, where outwardly you would see someone who's not having a big reaction. But from how we've seen her play other scenes in this movie so far, you know that there's this air of disappointment that she's, like, not hiding, but this air of disappointment that she's not necessarily, like, exposing of herself. She's not, like, leaning into. It contributes to this feeling you get of Nora as a character being very controlled and reserved with a lot of restraint. Not that she's no fun and doesn't laugh, because we see her laugh and make jokes a bunch, but when it comes to, like, her big feelings and her expression of those big feelings, that stays inside. She responds like, hey, it'll be at least a year before I can visit Seoul because of grad school, money, and because of that, I think we should stop talking for a while.
I think something you see here is he's made a choice, right? He's doing this language exchange program. Although something that you notice if you're paying attention is a lot of the sacrifices around their time and when they can communicate are made by Nora. She's the one waking up early hours or staying up late hours to talk to him before he leaves for his class or when he gets home. Even in jotting down the Korean keyboard, she's typing in a language and adapting a foreign keyboard just so she can correspond with him on a daily basis. He's typing to her in his language. I mean, that's also her language. But as kids who have a second language, I'm speaking as somebody who has a second language and I'm living and growing up in an English environment. It's a challenge for me to switch to Spanish to have a full-fledged conversation. Even though I'm fluent in the language, it takes a lot more brain power. It takes a lot more thought to be able to have this same conversation I'm having in Spanish. So she's making that mental effort for him. She's constantly accommodating him in this process where they're making this long distance correspondence. You don't see that coming a lot from his end.
I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I think the time sacrifices are probably pretty even across the board just based on the vastness of that time difference. Like, it's going to be inconvenient to talk no matter what.
What they're expressing on screen. I'll
sure.
say that.
Sure.
By what they're expressing on screen, you see more of Nora making the effort.
Yeah, and definitely the language thing. But I don't know. I kind of see it as like me forcing one of my family members to speak to me in English, because that's what I'm more fluent in. It's like, no, I'm going to default to my terrible Spanish.
He also seems unwilling, though.
Okay.
Of embracing this new side of her life that she has. It's almost like he wants to force her to embrace just the Korean side, where you're kind of forgetting that this person has now grown up in their formative years and quite literally for a full half of their life lived in this other country that's also now part of who they are.
Nora says, I think we should stop talking for a while. And Haesung responds with like, why? What's going on? And she's kind of like, hey, I've immigrated twice. We came to Canada when I was a kid and I came to New York as an adult. And I've got goals. Like, I've got stuff to do. I'm trying to focus on that. And instead, I'm looking up flights to Seoul. What the fuck is that? I'm off my shit. I'm off my game. And kind of like the unspoken part of that is like, I'm off my game for something that doesn't feel as reciprocated as I want it to be. The conversation hits like a breakup on both sides. He's more visibly emotional than she is, honestly, for the whole movie. Like, for the whole time that we see their characters, except for when she's literally a child. He starts to cry. Like, he gets upset, and he's just like, what's wrong with me? Like, this just sucks a lot. Like, it took me a really long time to, like, find you again, and now we're not gonna talk anymore. She's like, well, it's not gonna be for long, you know, like, just for a little while. Like, you'll see me again. We'll come back. She's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, what are you sorry about? Were we dating or something?
And like,
woof.
You jerky McJerk. And I get it. They probably didn't outwardly say, you're my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend.
It's just how they were acting.
But the amount of effort and time going into maintaining this relationship between these two people who care a lot about each other and who are telling each other, I miss you and I care for you. At no point do they say, I love you, or that do they show that on screen. But she told him, this is becoming a big distraction in my life. I'm not seeing this reciprocated. I think we should take a break. Mm-hmm. He felt that, and he needed to also knock down the relationship a bit. It's not like we were dating or something.
Yeah, I mean, his pride is super wounded. I feel like in his position, I would react the same way. He quickly ends the call. He's like, all right, fine, bye. Like, I've got to go. And is left in his room crying. She's quietly crying on the other end now that the call is over.
She's visibly upset.
Oh, yeah.
I think from Nora's end, this was almost like the last test. She started the conversation by, when do you think you'll be able to come to New York? And it was like, a year and a half, maybe. There needed to be more initiative on his end. Something that'll say, this is worth the wait.
We see her in the next scene, curled up on a bus, leaving the city. We've learned briefly earlier in a conversation with Hae-sung that she was accepted to this artist residency in Montauk. Now we can kind of assume, that's where she's going. She disembarks from a taxi that has pulled up to this like stunning, empty, secluded, beachy home. She walks up into the empty house.
It's like a rural area.
Yeah. She chooses a room, looks at the wall where there's like a bunch of handwritten names followed by the year. Previous artists in residency who have kept a record of who stayed in those rooms on the wall. She writes her name, Nora Moon, writes the year, 2012.
Of the rooms, she picks the brightest. Mm-hmm. Her room is the brightest and is the only one that you see that has a writing desk in the room.
Nora's a writer. And we see Hae-sung on the train somewhere in Korea. He has an email open on his BlackBerry that's drafted to be sent to Nora. Can't read Korean, so I do not know what this email says.
If anyone has seen this movie and you know how to read Korean, please tell us, what does the email say that we don't see him send? I would love to know.
As Hae-sung's on the train, there's a couple, a man and a woman, sitting across from him. And they're like in their own world. They're being a couple. They're like flirting and giggling and having a sweet old time. And he's watching them just like so dejected and forlorn. He does not send the email. He just gets off the train, walks up to a bustling restaurant, meets up with the same group of friends as before, so like a year before, and starts drinking the moment he sits down. Literally picks up like 3 of their drinks and just downs them. And we learn that they're all together to give Hae-sung like a send-off because he's leaving for this like Mandarin immersion program. He just announces to his friends like, guys, tonight we drink until we die. I need to get fucked up. And his friends are like, totally, man. Dude. I'm 24 and I'm invincible. So next scene, we see Nora out of focus, asleep on the bed of the room that she has chosen in this like gorgeous, amazing, huge house. And through her window, in this like fabulous juxtaposition of a shot, we see another person exiting a taxi with their luggage, very much in the same fashion she exited the taxi the day before. It's a white guy. We see Nora kind of like wake up, head downstairs, maybe get a cup of coffee, walk outside into the yard. This same white guy who we as the viewer saw get out of this taxi is kind of walking around the yard. She says hi to him. He says hi to her. He introduces himself as Arthur.
It's just like the way he arrives And you get this shot through this open window. So one thing you notice about Nora is she keeps the windows open in her space, maybe symbolizing opportunity, always open to opportunity. And we see him arriving through this open window. And as we know, Nora has a window of opportunity where she's single in this moment in her life.
In the next scene, we cut to Haesung on a plane, ostensibly leaving for his like summer immersion program in China. He seems to be in like this like efficiency type hotel room or like dorm type room almost, with this huge window where you see the skyline to what I believe is Shanghai, but if I got that wrong, don't fucking come for me. And I mean, it's stunning. It's a very, very vibrant looking skyline. We get a voiceover of Nora kind of as we're still lingering on this shot, defining the concept of inyon in Korean. So this voiceover, I think because it's in English and because it is so central to like every theme of this movie that was used in a lot of the promotional materials and the trailers and stuff, the concept of inyon in Korean is pretty much like providence or fate, but it is specifically regarding relationships between people. So we cut back to Nora beneath this voiceover in the backyard of this like gorgeous, incredible house with Arthur, who we've met, and then like 2 or 3 other people laughing around a table. We cut back over to Haesung at a bustling night market, just trying to find some food, kind of like eating dinner alone, looking like really lonely. And the voiceover continues and Nora says, you know, if 2 people get married, they say it's because there have been 8,000 layers of inyon through 8,000 lifetimes. We see Haesung as he's starting to eat his dinner alone, look over to the side and lock eyes with a woman at the next table. You can assume that they're going to make a connection just based on like the meaning and emotion loaded behind that look. Then we cut back to Nora and Arthur sitting at the same table outside at night. Her voiceover is kind of carrying through into their conversation. And Arthur is like, you know, do you really believe in that? Like inyon? And Nora replies, you know, that's just something Koreans say when they want to seduce someone. Okay, bitch.
Oh, word.
Okay, bitch. I see you. And she looks at Arthur meaningfully.
Meaningfully.
Hint,
hint. She sent an eggplant emoji with the
with the eyes.
The
with the eyes emoji.
Not with the water drops.
And he leans in the entire way to kiss her.
This wasn't a hitch 90-10.
No.
This was
a
100% lean.
From Arthur.
I love that the meaning behind the inyon. Inyon is created even by brushing somebody in the shoulder. It's almost this belief that each of these interactions continues to add up over your lifetimes, over your lives, right? So in this life, we might have brushed arms. Mm-hmm. In the next life, we sat next to each other in the train. In the life after that, maybe we were friends. Almost this belief that our lives are just layers of past lives that add up to the relationships we create in our current life. Amazing. I love to think about that. Who we were to each other in a past life. Do you think we were sisters?
Better have been.
How many times did you have to brush my arm for
before
us
we
to be
became
sisters in this life?
You know what?
Were
Maybe
we
a
like
couple hundred?
A couple hundred? I feel like it has to be more than a married couple. Right? If it has to be more, it's deeper. There's 10,000 brushes. We had to have 10,000 brushes
to be sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we got along.
We were definitely best friends in our past life, and then this life, God was like, "Fine, you guys can be sisters.
You're stuck together. You're so fucking annoying." And I agree.
Stop fucking calling each other all the time. Psych, you still do that.
Yeah, JK.
Yeah, I love thinking about that. Mm-hmm. So in this life of Nora, we are left to decipher what type of inyon she has with Arthur, who she just met at this artist residency, and what type of inyon her and Haesung share, and which of those inyons is stronger.
Yeah, we'll see.
So join us for part 2 to find out where these inyons take us.
on this delicious croissant we call life. Many buttery layers.